Hi, everyone. Today, I'm pleased to be able to welcome Arielle Ross, who was a mentee with me in mid-2020 and reached out to me. This is an example of someone who took control of her professional development and specifically for her job search, reaching out through the university. We both went to the University of Rochester's platform for networking. She's going to talk more about her interest in getting into nursing jobs after having done an accelerated program for nursing through the University of Rochester, after she'd also had a career working focused in some different areas. The theme that I saw when I first started working with her was that she really had a helping professions set of experiences that weren't coming through in what we worked together on. And so as she tells her story, think about a person who came from what looks like a very different background into nursing, and then listen to her story of what she did to take control and convince people that and organizations that she would make a good asset in nursing, because now she's employed at Sibley Hospital. So welcome, Arielle. Just tell us a little bit about when you started at Sibley and how it's been going so far.
Thank you for having me. So I started back in October 2020, and I'm about to get off orientation at the end of the month. So I'm excited about that. I work in Sibley Memorial Hospital's emergency department.
Great. Well, it's a challenging job and one. I loved emergency nursing when I was young, but I'm not sure I'd do it now. You definitely are on your toes all the time, I know. I want to talk a little bit about, or have you talk about, the pathway for your job search. You sought me out for help, and I'm interested in hearing about what did you do before we connected? I know you wanted to get back into nursing. How did you pursue trying to get back into that, since you graduated in 2016 and we were connected in 2020? So there were a couple years in between. And any thinking, reflection that you have that will help other people understand how you used, in our case, it's called the Meliora Collective at the University of Rochester, but an alumni networking platform, how you used it to find me. So the stage is yours.
Thank you. So it was a long journey. I had a job opportunity with the Department of Defense. That was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so I wanted to take advantage of that after nursing school. Despite that, I still wanted to work as a nurse part-time, but it was very hard to find work. Personal things got in the way. So I really struggled for a while and kind of put it on the back burner. Then this past year, I had an opportunity. I was deployed overseas, and COVID, came about. They were looking for workers and for helpers, and I wanted to help out. I really felt the need to help, considering I'm a nurse. I can help. I want to help. And so I found an opportunity to support on my deployment, their efforts for COVID. Upon return from deployment, it kind of really showed me that.
Can I just interrupt for a minute? You were out in Guam, as I recall, right?
Yes, I was in Guam.
Yeah, that's great.
Yes, I was helping their efforts with COVID. And once I came back, I still wanted to help out. The government had a program that allowed us to kind of maybe do work as in a different career for a little bit, but I found it very hard to navigate and hard to make that transition in the time frame I wanted. And I was kind of stuck. I didn't know what to do. I'd been out of nursing for so long. I didn't know how to reshape my resume, who to reach out to, what I would even qualify for, being that I was out for so long. And I just didn't know where to go. And so I kind of, I also didn't know that many nurses, at least in my area. I live in the DC area, so I didn't know anyone at the time in the career. And so I think I got an email about the Meliora Collective, and so I figured I would explore it. And so I messaged a bunch of people, started speaking with them on Zoom because of COVID, learning about their different experiences. They connected me with other people. That's how I met you. And I think I really needed that guidance on resume, on I don't know if you want me to go into now on how you helped me, but
yeah, so let's move on to any specific things that I helped you with. But what I hear you saying is you did, as I recall, you had connected with some people. You were, before we talked, you also had been doing job searching. You did have some connections who were helpful, but didn't move forward a lot at that point. And the platform that how long did it take you to find me? I mean, you went to the Meliora Collective once and dug around, or did you have to go several times? I realize I've never asked you that.
I think they had just launched it, so
Okay.
it was very new. Yeah. But everyone who I messaged was very responsive, which was heartening.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. All right. So tell me about what you feel that we worked on together that you think was critical to your success. Anything I said to you, anything I did. I mean, you don't have to go through everything we did together, but what stands out in your mind?
A few things. Through our meetings, I kind of felt empowered and encouraged to go through everything and have the strength to do so with deadlines. I know I was it was something I wanted to do, but I was scared because I had a comfortable job, comfortable career path. And I was scared to move from it despite my passion for nursing. And I didn't have anyone to speak to about that, to necessarily express my concerns or let it out. And I thought that speaking with you was very helpful. I remember specifically at one point you said, it's not your job, it's a job, it's not your career. And that has stuck with me. Yeah, because I thought about it and I was like, she's right. You know, I don't see a career with this job, and I do need to make that switch to nursing. And yeah, meeting with you gave the strength to do that. You set deadlines, you helped review questions for interviews, helped set up the screen because this was all over Zoom. As a resume resource, and then also you encouraged me to speak with my former classmates, since those were the contacts I did have, and ask about what their experience has been these last few years working in the field and what to look for in an employer. But most importantly, speaking with you brought me value, what I'm worth, and that I'm worth something to the employer despite being out for so long, and having that courage to even apply for hospital jobs, because I was nervous about that, if I would even qualify for those. So,
well, thank you for emphasizing that. And you've actually given me a couple of things that I want to shape for you. One of the things that you were struggling with was you were doing a resume, but the whole life that you had that came through the funding scholarship you had for the language training overseas, for all the work you'd done both in Israel and the US, for your work at State Department, didn't come, sorry, I keep saying State Department of Defense, DOD. It didn't come through anywhere. What I know I helped you with was showing your value, but the value was based on telling your story. So we wove a story of a person who's multilingual, who's been in the helping professions, right? I'm feeding you lines, but you know, I helped you weave a bigger story, and that's what I said. What I said to you, I say to many mentees. Let's go back to the beginning and look at the big picture of how you've gotten to where you are. Because you were also, when you contacted me, you had just recently finished the required time period that you had to give back to DOD for the training that you'd been on. And so that was one reason that you weren't necessarily able to pursue nursing right away. So thank you for identifying several of the areas. And I love that you remember that I said, the work you're in, your job isn't necessarily your career path, because it isn't always with people, or we do things, you know, every job I think is an opportunity, but it doesn't mean you have to stay in it forever. And I appreciate you acknowledging at the beginning, it was comfortable for you and it didn't move you out. thank you mostly for saying how working with me, you felt empowered. And that's my goal, is to get you empowered. And yes, I can be your accountability. I'm very good with setting people deadlines and things like that. So you basically told me both anything I said that you thought was critical to your success, as well as identifying ways that I helped you. As I recall, you also, at the same time, we did one thing that you then were able to check with other people. We did also do some a session on looking at the jobs themselves. How are they advertised? What are they asking for? What's the difference between X or Y? And in your case, you were applying for a job that was a 1 year, it was an entrance to get back into nursing in your mind, but also it was an entrance for them to hire you to be of value as they spend time orienting you to the emergency department. So what we had to do is demonstrate on paper, and then we rehearsed, you did your interview questions so that you could answer that, because you didn't, after 2016, you really didn't, other than and I don't mean other than the COVID work, you did the COVID work, but that wasn't clinical nursing necessarily. So do you remember anything in the interview questions when Sibley interviewed you that you felt you were well prepared for, or anything that you wish you'd prepared for better in terms of you had to convince someone to take you on because you didn't come directly with the clinical training. So how was the interview?
The interview was actually quite short. I was very surprised by it. So I definitely over-prepared, but I always like to over-prepare rather than under-prepare. I think in my case, it helped having a reference. I do have a friend that works at the hospital. Right. And I think just having that kind of also sets you apart and gives you some sort of credibility, since it was harder to find jobs at other hospitals being, so far removed. But with our work together in the interview, I felt very comfortable going in. Very
good. That's great. All right. So as we wind up, my last question is more about you and your professional pathway. So I always ask mentees to pay it forward in some fashion, and that's a variety of things. In fact, you connected me to one of your friends who was interested based on you saying what you felt you were able to do for your career. But beyond that, I know you're not job hunting right now, and hopefully you'll be at Sibley for a while. It seems like it's a good job fit. Congrats for finishing your orientation period. Do you have any thoughts on ways that you'll continue to pay it forward in terms of how to use and take control of your professional development?
Yes. So in Judaism, it's actually a really high mitzvah, like a good deed to help someone find employment or to employ somebody.
Oh, wow. Uh-huh.
And so I always find that helping people get jobs and going down their dream path is super wonderful if I could help someone in that way. So any way I can potentially connect others with work, opportunities, advise on career paths, I always try and help and make those connections. And because of your efforts and everything, and this was the first year I started working as a nurse, so I donated to the University of Rochester as well.
Oh, great.
For all their support. Mm-hmm.
Good. Well, that's great. That's very interesting about Judaism and how it looks on that. But I'm thrilled that you have a job. I'm happy to have been part of your career path and getting you to the next step. That's what I tell people. I think I can get them. I know from you, I can get you unstuck and moved along. So I'm going to close this interview with big thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule, because I know you don't have an even work schedule, so you catch sleep when you can. Thanks, Arielle.
Thank you so much, Sue.